Welcome to another episode of Dad's Rules with Kevin Belzer, and today we're at another special location, my side patio. It was the only place that I could get away from the dog who would not stop panting. It's very frustrating. It's like, yeah, we're going into the studio tomorrow to record a bunch of podcasts, but I wanted to shoot another couple solo episodes because I had some topics on my mind, and sometimes they just, if I hold them out for a few days until I'm going to get into the podcast studio, they just don't seem to have the impact that I want them to have. So today I wanted to talk about something that I've been watching on TV. And before you get alarm bells and everything, Kevin watches TV. Yeah, I decompress like everybody else. But what I was actually watching was a show called Hard Knocks. Now, if you know this, maybe you don't, I do live in Arizona. I've been a lifelong Arizona Cardinals fan since they were in St. Louis. When I was a little kid, my dad bought me a St. Louis Cardinals football helmet that I still have it somewhere in all my stuff. But anyway, he bought that for me when I was a little kid, and I've had that ever since. I've been a Cardinals fan ever since. Anyway, they were on Hard Knocks, or Hard Knocks did in the season with them last year. Now, when it initially started, the Hard Knocks show last year, I was watching it each week because they were airing it usually about anywhere from 2 to 5 days after the game that week. So you're seeing a breakdown of the game, the practice going into the next game, all that fun stuff. But that was a very bad season. It's very hard for me to get through, so I stopped watching it. Now the pain has subsided somewhat, and show's been done since January of the beginning of this year. Now it is almost September when I'm recording this. So I was like, all right, let's dive back in. What I like about this show is that it gets into not only the football side of things, but also the personnel, the people involved in it. It makes them to where they're human, and you get to see what drives them and what's behind the player, what motivates you or what motivates them. So there was a few lessons that I took out of the Cardinals season because I was watching that one, and then they just started broadcasting the New York Jets. And I guess the way they do it is they break it down. They'll follow a team for training camp. They'll follow a team during the preseason. They break it down a couple different ways. So anyway, this particular one for the Jets is training camp. And I got a lot of lessons out of what the Jets are doing right now and what the Cardinals did then. Now, there's a lot of hype around this Jets team. They got this free agent that maybe you've heard of in the offseason. His name is Aaron Rodgers. 4-time NFL Player of the Year, Super Bowl champion, holds all these records. Badass player, played his whole career in Green Bay. Started his career with Green Bay as the backup to Brett Favre, and he was I don't have the data in front of me, but I believe he was the 25th pick in the first round. So he was passed over for a lot of other quarterbacks who aren't even around anymore. Anyway, they passed up on him. He ended up sitting behind Brett Favre for a few seasons, and then Brett Favre left to, I think, the Jets as well. It was either the Jets or the Vikings. Anyway, he left. He moved on, and finally they inserted him. And Brett Favre appeared to be, right out of the gate, this phenomenal ball player. Now, the reality is that he got to sit behind a great player, learn from this Hall of Fame quarterback, Brett Favre, got to learn from him while sitting on the bench, watching him, studying him, and really learning the game behind him. So when he got to finally play, I actually think it ended up being a benefit for him because he wasn't thrown into it like Kyler Murray was with the Cardinals, where he immediately is right then starting and doesn't have like a true mentor to learn the game off of. Well, anyway, I'm saying anyway a lot. All right, we're going to leave all these in here. We've talked about this before. If I screw up, if I say things a lot lot. If I if I stutter over myself, that was a prime example. We're going to leave that stuff in because these podcasts are going to be raw. So note to self, let's stop saying anyway so many times. Let's go on. There was 3 takeaways I got from what I've seen so far of the Jets training camp and what I saw from the Cardinals watching all of the past season. Because in like a couple sittings, I got through everything. As soon as I got into it, I'm like, there's some definite learning lessons I can pass on to people in the Dad's Rules community. So, number 1, what I was noticing out of both is motivational talk. Motivational talk, the question is it worthless? Is it bullshit? Does it have any true benefit? I will argue on the surface that yes, there's a benefit to being motivated all the time. But I also believe that you should be self-motivated, not just needing inspiring quotes and stuff like that as well. Now, what I really noticed out of both these teams is what happened after the motivational talk, and that's what I really want to get into. So the Cardinals had, before practice started, when they were in the film room, stuff like that, they would be doing, they would have a quote on the board. I saw it in like every episode. There'd be some motivational quote on the board. It didn't matter. You're watching the team go from 4-7 to 4-8 to 4-9 to 4-10, on and on to where they ended the season at 4-13, and they're absolutely craptacular. Absolutely pathetic. But anyway, every week there's quotes on there. There was coaches rah-rahing them up. I was watching every post game. Cliff Kingsbury was talking to the players and giving them motivation and stuff of, hey, I really like how hard you played, and you guys gave it your all, and rah, and let's just hit it back this week. Let's have a good practice this week, and let's win next week's game. And I noticed that the Jets have been handling it a little bit different. They'll be saying stuff like that, but at the same time, they're going, hey, here's what I like that so-and-so did. Watch how Q rushed the quarterback on this play. And if this had been like a for real game and not a training camp game, that he had like 10 sacks in a row. I mean, it was ridiculous watching this kid practice. He got a huge contract in the offseason. It was like 90-some million, I believe, even if it was 50-some million. It was lots. It was tens of millions. Whatever it was a lot of money. And I didn't know this guy because I don't follow the Jets. So I was watching him practice, and not only practice, but then in the training camp, simulated games, and then when they were preseason against the Carolina Panthers, and I just watched him go all out. And I noticed that, okay, here's somebody that he heard all the rah-rah as well, but then, point number 2, it was backed up with action. That it wasn't just that I'm going to have this rah-rah talk going into my head. I'm actually going to back it up with action. And what I saw that the coaches of the Jets, at least so far, because it's a highly, highly hyped team, and as were the Cardinals last year because they brought in a lot of big-time free agents. They're both highly touted. Hard Knocks really wanted both these teams because they thought that they were teams that could actually go somewhere. So so what was different about these teams is that there was a motivational talk out of the Cardinals, and with Hard Knocks, they show behind the scenes of the training, the practices, and all that. The difference I was seeing, and this could get down to how they script out the show and everything, but from what I'm hearing for others, that's not the case. It is what it is. Yes, you're editing down film, but it's pretty realistic. What I was seeing is that the Cardinals had a lot of rah-rah, a lot of motivational talk, but weren't backing it up with actionable steps that could be taken to get the desired results. Whereas the Jets, so far, we'll see if they live up to the hype or not, I've seen them when they're breaking down the film with the players, breaking them down on the field, seeing Brett Favre pull aside his backup quarterback, Zach Wilson, the talks that they're having, is that I'm seeing that, hey, it's not just, hey, you've got the talent and yada, yada, because I've seen Brett Favre say that to somebody, but then also go, hey, here, work on your no-look passes, study what I do. The other difference I was noticing, and this was really huge so far on the Jets, is that star players that are making the big bucks, they're not sitting back at the practices, because I kind of felt like that with some of the stuff I've seen from the Cardinals. They're actually the first ones out there. They're the last ones to leave the field. They're the ones that are setting the example for the other players, for the rookies, for even some vets have been around the league that you need to step up your game. They're setting the example for these players by going out there, executing it correctly at a high level, even though it's just practice, which you want to be, side note, I guess, you practice is worthless unless it's being practiced where you're trying to practice perfection. Because if you're practicing to get to perfection, when game time hits, you're going to be able to move that perfect practice over into game time and execute it again. You see it on teams like Alabama, for example, in college football. They're phenomenal year in and year out. But from what I've read and seen video on, is that they practice the little details until they get it perfect and then they move on. What I liked about what I was seeing out of the Jets practice is that they were doing the same thing. They were practicing the little things until they could get it to where it was perfect. Again, we'll see if that translates all the way through the season, if they step up this year, but it was quite impressive what I was seeing. And I wasn't seeing that out of the Cardinals last year, so it was honestly no surprise when they got rid of a lot of personnel, a lot of people that, unfortunately, we could think that they're very talented players, but maybe they weren't giving their all to the team. Coaches that weren't living up to expectations. A lot of what we were seeing last year is lack of adjustment at halftime. If you're in business and things aren't going exactly the way you want in, say, even a business meeting or in a pitch to a new client, do you change? Do you adjust at halftime? The Cardinals weren't adjusting at halftime last year. It's going to be interesting to see if what I've seen so far out of the Jets in the preseason, if they'll be able to do that or not. The third point out of this that I got was, you can do it all. You can do everything the way it's meant to be drawn up perfectly and still not get the results you want. Because a couple of reasons. One, that's life, and sometimes the breaks just don't go your way. Two, the opponent you're playing could just be flat out better than you, have studied just as hard as you, and been ready for what you were going to do. And lastly, could just flat out have more talent than you. You could be doing everything right. We've seen to where teams, you know that they've got a good coach, they've got some good pieces, but they're going to be another year or two away because they need to put some more pieces in. I gave the example in my first Dad's Rules book, Dad's Rules for Being a Kick-Ass Adult. I gave an example in there about the 2016 Chicago Cubs. Now, we all know the story, especially if you're from Chicago, worked in Chicago like I did, that they went on, they won it all. But we saw all the pieces coming together a few years before that, where they got a better coach. They started bringing in periphery players, started upgrading positions. We saw a glimpse in 2015 that they were close. They got all the way to the championship game, only to lose to the stupid Mets. Fucking hate the Mets. Only to lose to the Mets. And then get the rematch the next year and go on and win the World Series. What we saw that 2015 year is that they were almost there. They just didn't have quite enough pieces in there yet. So they were doing everything right. It's just the skills for specific areas of the team, they weren't there and they still need to be filled in. How can I correlate this into business? You could be doing everything right in your presentation, yet they don't hire you because so-and-so has a better TV budget than you, or radio budget better than you, has got more years in than you, has closed more deals than you. You're gonna have your hard knocks, pun intended. You're gonna have your hard knocks when you come into business, that you can be doing everything right. Presentation, your dress, you're answering your questions, everything, and you still don't get the job because somebody else has slightly more of something than you do. All I can say is fight through that, and eventually you'll get the wins under your belt. You'll get even more skills. You'll get better at answering some of the questions. You'll get better at presenting a level of confidence that you may have been lacking early on, and you'll start winning those deals that you weren't winning before. I know for a fact that if me and another agent showing up at a house at the same time, and they roll up in their BMW and hop out of it, and I roll up in my wrap truck that advertises what I do in a very obnoxious, aggressive, attention-grabbing way, that I've got a leg up on them. You will get to that point if you keep putting in the reps, if you keep putting your time in. The big thing is, don't quit. Don't stop doing the fundamentals. Don't quit working on your skills. And just analyze the game film like the Cardinals were supposed to be doing, and like the Jets were doing out of their preseason games so far. Analyzing it and seeing where you can make the tweaks to improve. Something that I've been doing for years is, after each appointment, talking to my business partner, and we break it down, the good, the bad, and the ugly of that appointment. Even if I signed it, hey, here's what I said that worked really well. Or if I didn't sign it, walking out going, yeah, I screwed up. I'm gonna still try to save it because the game's not over yet. I'm assuming that I've got overtime to try to fix this. And then there's just other times where I'm like, okay, I screwed this up. I gotta get back on point, go from shotgun the appointment to down to back to sniper of my presentation. I've got to get better at that. So it's like always be analyzing it. All right, so that's going to be wrapping up for this episode. If you like the show, please like, share, comment, review, leave feedback. It all helps me grow. As you can see, I ain't editing any of this out. It's too raw, it's too good as far as I'm concerned. If you'd like and would like to support the show, hit the swag shop, dadsruleswag.com. You can pick up a cool little shirt like this. Got tons of designs on there. I think we're up over 40 some designs on there. Hit that up, it helps us out. And until next time, go out and be the kick-ass adult I know you all can be.